Hello and welcome to the Hero's Tale combat tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to go through all the combat phases, as well as covering what all the stats mean on the cards. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the stats. You have the health stat, which whenever that is reduced to 0, your character or NPC is dead. Now moving right along, we have the defense stat, which tells us what number we have to roll higher than in order to land a successful damaging blow against the enemy. And lastly, we have the speed stat, which is very important and comes into play during the reflex roll. It decides which team goes first, either the Game Master's NPCs or the heroes. Next up, when you're looking at ability and equipment cards, some ability and equipment cards will have attack or heal or have armor. Now, let's look at attack first. Attack basically says if you are successful in your attack roll, you will deal this much damage, which in this case is 2. Now keep in mind, whenever you roll the 20-sided die, it is considered to be an action roll. Now, if you ever roll a 20, this is considered to be a critical, which means times 2. So if you roll it for an attack, you will do times 2 damage. If you roll it for healing, you will do times 2 healing. Now, inversely, if you roll a 1, that means instant failure and you are unsuccessful with your attack. The only time you can be successful when you roll a 1 or a crit fail is when you are healing. And lastly, when you see the armor stat, this doesn't add to your previous armor that you had for your hero. This is your new armor level. This is the new number that people have to roll higher than in order to attack you if you're wearing that armor. Now, if you see an armor symbol with a plus sign symbol, this means it will add to your armor. Okay, so now let's talk about the different phases in a combat encounter. The first phase we have is the reflex roll, then the winner's combat turn, and then the opposition's combat turn. And after this, you will repeat these combat turns back and forth until you have someone who retreats or is defeated. And the last phase is loot. Now let's talk about what happens on each individual phase. First off, the reflex roll. During the reflex roll, each team will roll a speed roll for every single one of their hero and NPC cards. Now keep in mind you add your speed stat to each one of these characters or NPC's individual rolls. Now the team with the individual who rolls the highest gets to go first. So once it's your team's turn, either hero's turn or the Game Master's turn, you can decide the order of play for all your hero and NPC cards during that turn. Once the individual NPCs and heroes for that team have made their actions, then it is the next team's turn. Keep in mind, if you want your NPC or hero to not do any actions on that turn, that is fine. You may pass that turn. So let's say it's your hero's turn to attack now. Now, there's two things that you need to keep in mind. You have a primary action and a secondary action. Primary actions consist of attacking, healing, or any other skill action roll that significantly affects the battle. A secondary action roll is anything that doesn't really affect the battle. You want to open a door or do some kind of barrel roll, that's all considered to be a secondary action. Also, it's important to note that when using any small item, it is considered a secondary action, unless it's stated otherwise on the card. One thing that we feel it's important to note here as well is that on ability cards, some of them will state that they are fast in the bottom right-hand corner of their illustration. And if they are a fast ability, that means you can activate this ability during your opponent's turn. However, this will also take up a secondary action for your next upcoming turn. So there's one last thing we want to talk about before you go. Effect cards like Poison and Bleeding do not stack. What this means is you can't have multiple of the same effect placed on an enemy. What happens when someone tries to cast another ability on top of it is the more recent one that's casted right then and there takes precedence and removes the other one away. So that's it for the combat tutorial. If you need to know any more information, you can feel free to check out some of the other video tutorials we have. Or if your question is more specific, you can try asking on our new forums. And thanks for watching.